In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Hello and greetings. This is Muhammad Suleiman Ahmadzai here with a new session for you, my friends. Alright, from now on, we'll be working together on the topics we still have left here. For example, in the section on cutting, we'll go over what we have together. After that, we'll work on any other topics we might have. I'm going to select a new page. Alright, try to notice that after canvas, we have something here called effect. Try, in the effects section, you and I, on this page we're currently working on, to choose together what kind of background this view should have, in terms of shape and style. For example, I can choose for the four sides of our page to have a gray colored background. It's like this as its ground. Alright, this canvas is considered for 2D images. But if there's no canvas, we move on. This scene has a ground, a 3D object that we create. We can usually set it up, for example, right here in this section. Here is the ground. You see, here when it stays, it even shows a shadow on the ground. That's why, for 3D objects, this part acts as the ground plane. Here, it's like a wall bar. But for 3D objects, again, this is not really necessary. Alright, so what color should this environment, this area, be? If we want to make a selection, then in the effects section, where the default is currently set, we can change them later. Any effect we choose from them, different effects will be applied to the environment we're working on. Everyone feels comfortable with a particular environment when designing or creating something, so they can choose that one. The standard is that it doesn't have any interesting colors, but we can use different colors for the environment when designing. Whichever one I choose, in fact, this wall that we mentioned is one of the walls of this area. There's always room for you to create and design, and that environment will remain available to you. We can also choose together from which direction the light will fall. The shadow and brightness, like highlights, fall to one side. We can choose that as well, so that our object becomes more visible. And also, so that the shadow effect is not applied on it. So, you get to choose this effect in terms of your design. For now, I'll just stick with the standard, the default setting as it is. Alright, try to, after these steps, move on to something else, after these two, which are related to the page and the information itself. Now, let's start from this section, in the cutting section. In the cutting section, as we covered in the previous lesson, in the paint program, we learned that there are all kinds of brushes. There were some tools we could use from there. Try to use the cutting tool here. For example, the first one is the marker for something. Well, as the name suggests, it's a marker. You just select it and start drawing. We can choose a technique here using the tools below. In the previous lesson, we had positive and negative control. In this case, positive and negative control works. But the best part is that here, we no longer need positive and negative control. Back there, for example, on some computers, positive and negative control worked, but on others, it didn't. Here, again, there's no need for it. Here, we see that we're plotting data over time. We can choose the symbol for oscillation and post hoc. For example, whether it's a spike or a complete post hoc, we can select it. When we plot over time, we see that I always have one post hoc. And here, for example, we can make a selection. We can set their colors so that each state has its own color. Well, later on, we'll work on their differences here. For now, we're just choosing the color. Whenever we select that marker, it gets plotted. To the mouse's plot, if we want. Well, in our mouse plot, we have something else called a pen. If we want, we can use this little pen. A special nib is used for color, and we get more check technique. Again, this pen is specifically for pens. When the movement gets a bit sharper somewhere, like a real pen, it makes the color a bit thinner. Where you move slowly, its thickness increases a bit. In the bridge of the banana, here we have something else. We have another nib, which we call the oil brush, like the colors. Like blue colors. It's a nib. It gives color to a part. If we want, we can choose the C technique, or it's a type of nib. If we choose something called watercolor, a blue color in clay, a color that has a bright spot, we can choose it. We have different types of nibs from pencil. We have pixel pencil. Try it. It's pixelated. Always, when we draw a number. It means it's a pencil, but its pixels are always visible. Well, in a small size, it can have a lot of dots. But the simple pencil is what we can use to write numbers with. The default color it has is black. It looks exactly like the color of a pencil. After this, we have something called crayon that we can use. It's another special type of nib. It's used for designing feet. In the previous program, we also had a nib there that we could use to design with different colors. We have a color spray. These can be used. For example, it's a special nib, and this one is a clean pencil again. We select the clean pencil again. The C technique is selected. One feature it doesn't have is that in the previous program, we could use Ctrl+ to zoom in. On some computers, it didn't work. Here, both Ctrl+ and minus work. One is Ctrl-, one is Ctrl+. But if a computer doesn't have it, it's still not a problem. They can use this instead. But in Windows, in the Paint program, on computers where it didn't work at all, it just wasn't used anymore. If we want, we have something else too. By default, we have something like fill color. We had this in the previous program as well. We would just select a color and then click with that color. We apply it here. Alright, wait for this one too. When we apply the color, by default here we select the color. Default color. Now, when we select a color, for example, it gets applied to the top of the whole page. The size of the lines at the top gets applied as well. Angle only takes these angles. Alright, we select the color, we pick its color. Okay, we had already covered this in the previous session, where I copy from one spot and paste it somewhere else. We had worked with a photo where we could copy the color from one image. Click on the colors. For example, first it has its own different colors here. If we want, we can click here on the palette or on this itself, so we can mix the colors ourselves based on the degree of red, green, and blue. We set the degree for it. In a simple way, we come here and click OK. Color number 4 gets added here, and if we want, we can apply that color there. So from here, we can use these objects as shapes either for direct drawing or apply them to 3D objects. For example, if we have a 3D object, let's say. For example, here I've drawn a 3D object. Let's say we take the color from below by default. For instance, let's say it has a color and it's Mars. Whenever we want to give it a color, like a color, or we want to color its hair or its parts, we color it. We select it. In the selection section, we say, I have a black color to work with. And in that section, with the brush we have, we give it color. It would be better if it was a bit more zoomed in. We zoomed this out a bit. Then we can take the eraser pencil. The eraser pencil is really big in size. If it has taken extra parts, we can then in the end, we can color the entire arm. This way, we also have the two-dimensional shapes. If we want, we can use the two-dimensional shapes, the things we learned in our previous program. For example, we draw a straight line. Or for instance, we have curved lines that, with a click at a point and a box with these points. When I select this point, because of this point, it has flexibility. This is a flexible point. For example, if we select this, it's a curved line and we see that it has 2 points. In the flexibility section that we created in the previous program, you had it with a curved line. Or, like a curved line, it has a control rule, or it has more lines. For example, a line that has several points. If we want, when designing, we can use these points for whatever we need. We also have other shapes besides that. For example, we have circles or various other shapes. Here, we can see that all kinds of shapes are available. Any shape that we draw. Any shape that is drawn here, after the shape, we see that something opens up in the link panel section. In the first section, you can make a selection. First, we select the solid color. Let it be none, meaning it doesn't have any fill color inside. We say, for the solid color, which color do we choose for its fill? Outline means which color should the border lines have. We select that as well. Let's set this to none, meaning we don't want it to have a border. Techniques are set based on degree, or we set them ourselves, or there is positive and negative control. After that, we set its capacity to a certain level. For example, it could be transparency. The colors we chose earlier, for example, let's say Mars. It could be class. It could be heart. These are its features that we select. We can rotate the object at different angles. It can be flipped 90 degrees to the left, right, or the opposite direction. We can also turn it into a 3D object. Similarly, we can also draw these 3D objects on the canvas. For example, here we select 3D shape. In the 3D objects section, for instance, I drew an object. After drawing the object, again, these points come up here. Because this object is 3D, it no longer relates to the main canvas. If we try to select it, it won't be selected again. When a 2D object is selected once and attached to the canvas, it can't be selected normally anymore. But we see the 3D object. Since it's not attached to our canvas, we can select it normally at any time. It gets selected. This is when we're drawing a 3D object on the canvas. Even if there's no canvas, we don't need a canvas at all. We just click. The editing points appear for us. With these, you can rotate them vertically or rotate them however you want. It shows their angles horizontally. Or, for example, we can select its angle. Or we can rotate it to this angle from here. But in the end, this object is created. We have these types of 3D objects here that we can select. For example, the first thing we have here is something called a tube or pipe. When we draw it, it creates the pipe shape. These points are again because of editing this tube. Again, if we want to change its shape, we can edit it again from any of the points. When we select the tube, we can choose which part of the tube we want it to have. It can be pipe-shaped, or it can have a triangular shape. Well, it can be pentagonal in different forms. We can choose all kinds of shapes here. It can be star-shaped, or have two angles. Or, for example, be a tube. In PolyZ, whichever one we select, we can choose it from here. For example, its ends or the head part. What should that part look like? These head parts can have a taper like this. Or, for example, the taper could be big on one side and small on the other. Or it could have a reverse angle in some places. Or be thin on both sides. Or, for example, have a W-shaped section in the middle, or from different parts. In short, when drawing these tapers, first we choose the unit of measurement. We choose its shape. After that, we draw it. We have already worked with polygons and colors. Well, with these, we can create some shapes. For example, things like water and such can be made for us. When we click, it directly takes the shape of water for itself. In the Edit Color section, for example, we can give it a color effect to make it look like water. The same with colors. We choose from these effects. It could be a bird. For example, it could be glass, or it could be a heart. These are color effects. For example, we say with this glass, it looks good. Now, if you see, this is a raindrop effect. Well, we haven't designed these properly. Like I said, if we want to design a raindrop effect, with loose layers, we can create angular, shaped forms. We keep working on it. We see that some shapes are created. We can use these default shapes as they are. There are 3D shapes that are built in themselves. For example, we have something like a plane or something similar. We use them for different purposes. Their color and appearance change by default. We also have other built-in objects. For example, some of the things that are here are presets. There's always a human figure. There are several objects, and after selecting the shape, you select it completely. Once, a well-known panel opens up. In the color section, you can change its color. Select mode chooses the complementary travel. Multiple selection, for example, if you want to select 2 items, then you click on multiple selection again. For example, I only select this patch here. Now, in the middle, only those 2 are selected. We can make this a group. That is, we can turn 2 objects into 1 object. When grouped, it means if I select the preset, both of them are selected together. Because both of these are grouped together. They are connected. If we separate them again, we can say that the group is split apart. You already know copy, paste, and delete, or you can rotate it to any angle you want, and it will flip. You can also hide its name. It shows us the corners of these. It applies the motion mode. It has a soft, flexible mode. It becomes clearer in the scissors that we have. We had already covered the sticker sections before. Some of the stickers have a bulletin. We take the sticker and draw it. By default, when the sticker is drawn, it is mostly applied on top of the objects around here as well. If we draw it on the page itself, we can also draw it directly on the page. It matches on the page itself, and if there is no page, we can still apply the stickers like this on top of the 3D objects as well. Any sticker you might have. There are all kinds of stickers here. And the colors of these are very bright. For example, if we look at the mouse in the stickers section, it has its own built-in items. We can apply things like eyes, nose, lips, and so on. For instance, if I have a pair of glasses for this, we can also select the glasses, for example, to see where they go. It gets placed on our model as a sticker. It's the sticker collection. In the end, we can apply the sticker. We also have various other stickers for our mouse here. If we want, what else can we do with these? We can draw them, or in those special sections for clothes or other parts, they can also be placed at the top of the page. But if there isn't a page and we have a 3D object, we can apply this inside the 3D object. If we wanted, we could have told it no. Instead of these stickers, we use photos that we have on our own computer. Again, we go to the section with the photos we have, for example. Again, we bring in our famous object that we drew ourselves, the object that we have. For example, it's a 3D model, but inside it, it's the same photo that we brought in ourselves. Let's select that same photo. It quickly selects that inside. So what can we do with the sticker models? We can select them. With the last part, which is text, if we want to write something on this page, for Zood we need a canvas again. So, we come back again, here. For example, if we want to write some text, we come here. If we want simple text, we click here and you can write it as plain text. Text, just like the program has. We've read about Paint. You select the font line. Then we choose its size. We pick its color. We select bold, italic, underline, and effects, from which angle to which part it should be written. It can also have a background, and what color the background should be. We can choose the background. If we don't want it, we remove it. This is a 2D text that sticks to the page itself. If we want to write it in 3D, we can do that too. Again, we click here. Now it's 3D, for example. Then you click on the page. We write your text in 3D form. Again, this is different. For example, I set its size, 130. For example, let it be bold. 130 is too much. 94. And, for example, let its color be like this. Now it's just a text. You see, it's a text. It's 3D. It makes you happy. We rotate it. It spins. You can see it has a complete 3D look to it. If we ignore the canvas, it shows up even better for us. So, can we also make texts in a 3D style? We can write and create text like that. So, this 3D text effect, this 3D text mode, is up to you. We had called our canvas Zavel. We've already worked with the effects before, so we know which effect shows our background and foreground. If it's just for text, you can also use stickers in different ways. When we have internet access for 3D, we can draw 3D shapes. A 3D library also opens up, where you can see a collection of nicely designed models, so you know what you can do. You can download them, and finally, dear friends, we ask that if you found these videos helpful, please like the videos to support us and help the channel grow. Subscribe to the channel, and hopefully, we'll see you in the next sessions. Goodbye.